Hey everybody, welcome back to the Boston-Raleigh channel. We're gonna do the next episode of the American Revolutionary series by Epic History. We took on a whole bunch of stuff, Bunker Hill, all kinds of different fights. We've done all sorts of different things already in this war. Episode 7, I believe we're on now. It's kind of an insane path. This is translating directly to beginning episode 4 of their series. I believe they only have 5 or 6 parts. So we'll be finishing up in the near future. We're actually more than halfway through already, which is kind of wild. But let's get into it.
Autumn 1775. King George III has decided to punish his rebellious colonies in America. While some British subjects sympathize with the Americans, a growing number see them as the king does.
Dangerous and ill-designing men who forget the allegiance which they owe to the power that has protected them.
See, sometimes it is nationalism that actually matters the most. The British people, as much as they don't like spending money and sending men to go fight in a war and die, they're not very happy because this is a big deal. This is still a big deal. I've made a lot of statements about how this is actually kind of unpopular, but it's also kind of popular too, and you kind of sometimes forget that overlaps a little bit. You got foreign policy is a tough deal, especially when it's domestic foreign policy, aka your empire is revolting.
The king and his advisors pore over maps and military reports.
We got Lord North, British Prime Minister, Earl of Sandwich, First Lord of the Admiralty, and George Germain, Secretary of State for the Colonies. That's interesting, because I guess they would have to have their own Secretary of State put in there for that kind of, like, back and forth. I guess, because it is like a foreign nation in a way, but it's, like, subject to the British Crown. Good grief, though. We've seen a little bit of Lord North. We've already seen a little bit of Earl of Sandwich, I think, too. I might be mistaken.
While seeking to raise a force of 18,000 German auxiliaries to reinforce their army in America.
From Hessen Castle, Hessen-Hanau, and Brunswick.
When once these rebels have felt a smart blow, they will submit.
The king tells his ministers.
I don't know that sentiment is aged very poorly. Wow, that's smart. I guess we'll submit. That's not going to happen.
Across Britain and Ireland, ships are requisitioned. 20,000 soldiers muster at Portsmouth, Cork, and other ports. The largest expeditionary force yet seen in British history will soon be under sail.
Part 4. Let's go. I need not mention to you the great importance of this place and the consequent possession of all Canada. To whomsoever it belongs will the balance turn. George Washington and Benedict Arnold, 1774.
In Philadelphia, the Second Continental Congress knows that the British will strike soon.
Bruh.
General Washington commands the main Patriot Army, which besieges the British in Boston. Patriot forces control much of the 13 colonies, with the help of local committees of correspondence, inspection, and safety.
7,000 committeemen.
But
Damn.
Elsewhere in North America, the British remain in control. Their colonies in the West Indies rely on the British military to protect them from imperial rivals and slave revolts.
I do love how they have the distinction of West and East Indies. I feel like sort of tropical islands just being called the Indies is a little funny, because the East Indies, like British East India Company, the East Indies are all the way over in the eastern part of the world. There are places like Malaysia, Indonesia, the sort of the islands off the north coast of Australia, things like that. That's the East Indies. Now you have the West Indies, which we just call like the Caribbean. I don't think anyone calls them the West Indies anymore. Bahamas, Jamaica, Leeward Islands, Dominica, Barbados, St. Vincent, Grenada, and Tobago. Funnily enough, Grenada and Tobago are not the same country currently. For all those little micronations that dot the the Caribbean. It is funny to see something like this and see like, yeah, the British they used to control a lot of this.
They will not risk rebellion. Florida's population is small and scattered, more worried by the threat of Spanish invasion than British tyranny.
Right. As we all know, Florida was not a part of the original 13 colonies, but was still an area at this point, and it was still old, and it's still a thing. And actually, most of what is Florida on here is actually parts of Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, in probably even Louisiana a little bit.
Native American tribes assume a watchful neutrality, although most secretly favor the British, seen as the more useful ally. But American patriots hope that Canada might still come over to their cause.
The Quebecois, come on!
The province of Quebec has only been ruled by the British since 1763. Most of its European population is French and Catholic. They have no love for the British, but the recent Quebec Act has restored their rights and privileges and reconciled...
Oh, so this is an important one. Important one. Quebec to expand threefold. That's a big one. Quebec is a very big province. Roman Catholic faith will be tolerated. That's a big deal at this point in time because obviously the British don't have a very good history with the Catholic Church at this point in time. Governor to be appointed by the Crown. That's also a very big, you know, I don't know that people love that. You know, maybe some people like that, some people don't. French civil law partially restored. Obviously, they're French peoples. And French seigneurial system restored. I don't even know what that is.
Any to British rule. When overtures arrive from Congress imploring the Canadians to join the rebellion, they are ignored.
Man.
Right now, there are just 800 British...
Imagine what Quebec would be like today if it was part of America. Just simply imagine. And then I guess all these other places, like we have St. Edward's Island or Prince Edward Island, St. John's Island on the map here. I'm not actually sure what the one that is particularly part of, though. Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Newfoundland, and Labrador. Those would all be America and Quebec. That would be kind of insane. I can't imagine how good it would have been for the Quebecois had they been a part of the States and just enjoyed the considerable freedom and the ability to be themselves, because they're kind of just they're stuck with they're stuck with what they got from Ontario.
Redcoats in Canada. But Congress knows the British will likely send reinforcements and use Canada as a staging ground to invade the 13 colonies. So Congress decides to strike first.
Yep.
In its own words, to liberate the oppressed inhabitants of Canada. The main advance will be made by the 2,000-strong Northern Army, gathered around Ticonderoga.
Fort
a
Ticonderoga.
disorganized force, hardly deserving of the name, but led by a talented Irish officer, General Richard Montgomery. In September 1775, he lays siege to Fort Saint-Jean, guarding the road to Canada. And with the heavy guns captured at Fort Ticonderoga, pummels it into submission in 6 weeks.
That's a long fight, by the way. 6 weeks. It's not a long-lasting siege by military standards entirely, but 6 weeks is a long time to be pummeled before you finally give in. Especially back in this period of time when you had to kind of take forts as quickly as you could in order to, you know, get the warfare going. This may be even more relevant with Napoleon, with what happens about 20, 25, 30 years later. Lightning warfare is what helped Napoleon out a lot. 6 weeks seems like a long campaign just to take a fort.
The road to Canada is open. But desertion and sickness have already reduced the Northern Army's strength by half.
1,000 men.
As the army marches on Quebec, a second force races to join them. Colonel Benedict Arnold an enterprising young officer from Connecticut, has convinced Washington to give him 2,000 men to reinforce Montgomery. His route is treacherous, through a wilderness of thick forests, rivers, and swamps.
Our march has been attended with an amazing deal of fatigue. I have been much deceived. Our route is longer and has been attended with 1,000 difficulties I never apprehended.
Many of Arnold's men give up and turn back. But in early December, he arrives outside Quebec and links up with Montgomery.
Imagine going through all this. Imagine Canada. Southern Canada, albeit, but still. Canada in December. Probably really friggin' cold. And how wet and marshy it is. I know from experience in here where I live in Virginia Beach, we don't really get a lot of snow in November, December. What you do get a lot of is rain mixed with the cold. So you just get this sludge, yucky ground that is just unpleasant to be in. And these people had to trudge through that in like considerably colder weather. So it's like icy and slushy too. It's just gross.
Their combined force is just 1,200 men.
Eek. 5 guns.
Quebec sits on an imposing bluff over the St. Lawrence River. It's the most well-fortified city in North America, with 20-foot walls and 114 cannon.
That's a lot.
The extremely able British governor, Guy Carleton, has prepared for a siege, recruiting hundreds of militia and stockpiling ammunition and supplies.
Oh my god. 1,800 men, so that's not out... They're not outmanned by that many. The Americans have 1,200, the Canadians have 1,800. 5 guns to 114 guns? Whoever thought they were going to be able to take this? I mean, if you did, it would be the win of the century, honestly. That's insane. Again, guns meaning not firearms, but cannons. Heavy guns.
The Americans are under pressure. It is midwinter. And just as at Boston, they face the prospect of hundreds of troops going home in a few days, when their enlistments expire.
The enlistment problem is plaguing America at this point. We didn't have... See, in modern America, your enlistment usually is a 4-year or longer enlistment in the United States military. That usually isn't the big problem for people having to just, go back home when their enlistment's up and they're not interested in serving anymore. You just have a ton of people who are like, all right, I was enlisted for like 6 months to a year or something in that regard. And it's, well, now that the enlistment's up, it's kind of home is calling me very hard right now. Not sitting here in the cold, the mud, dealing with all this garbage, trying to take a fort that we are completely outgunned to take.
So, Arnold and Montgomery decide to risk an immediate assault.
That's a bad idea. Very bad idea. Based on everything I know to be true, that is a bad idea, even without knowing the outcome of this.
In the early hours of the 31st of December, under cover of a blizzard, the Americans attack. But it is a disaster.
Oh yeah.
They are met by organized, determined British resistance. General Montgomery is killed. His men routed.
For those of you who don't know, routed means all men were killed in that conflict. Or captured, maybe? I mean, the entire army was neutralized. That is what that means. I think it could mean captured, but usually that means everyone gets killed. Kind of thing.
Colonel Arnold is badly wounded, while hundreds of his men are surrounded and captured. The remnants of the Northern Army, about 600 men, are isolated, frozen, ravaged by smallpox, and hundreds of miles from friendly territory.
Oh man.
For now, Arnold stubbornly holds his position outside Quebec.
That's
but
rough.
It is clear he won't last long without reinforcements.
That's just such a bad opportunity, a bad window. Nobody ever wants to deal with that. That's terrible. I mean, I got a feel for him because it's like the enlistments were going up. We need to make an attack now. It's just like, what? With that little, like if you're going to mount a siege like that, you probably want at least 2,000 men minimum. You probably want at least 50 guns minimum. And you can easily make that happen with the right manpower. It's just that if you're going up against a very, very well trained army, and you're that outgunned, let alone the outmanning of 2 to 3 or 3 to 2. I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like the call. Honestly, we're crazy, but maybe being that crazy is a little too ridiculous. Too ridiculous. Remember, it is the 5th of March, and avenge the death for your brethren. Washington to his army, 5th of March, 1776. The 6th anniversary of the Boston Massacre.
That winter, Henry Knox, a 25-year-old bookseller from Boston, now a colonel in the Patriot Army, oversees a stunning logistical operation. The movement of 59 heavy guns, some weighing more than 2 tons, across 300 miles of snow, mountains and frozen rivers, using sleds, oxen and horses.
So it's funny because the heavy guns, 59 heavy guns, would have been great for taking on that Quebec army. But a siege with gunpowder is not exactly all of what you need. It is a difficult operation, and what happened to Arnold was just what happened to Arnold Montgomery. You're not like I don't know. I believe if they had actually somehow succeeded to take Quebec and capture that fort up there, you would have won. Like, it would have just been, you would have won, right? Like that would have been a massive victory that would have completely turned the tide. You would have gotten all kinds of support, probably. Maybe it would have been met with resistance. I don't know. I gotta imagine that a sort of ragtag group of states that have some Catholics in, like Maryland was a Catholic state at that point. A ragtag group of states probably would have been able to somehow convince the Quebecois against British, especially with the British authority being able to install their own governors, their own leadership in the state. I mean, they sort of bought it a little bit with the tolerance for Catholicism, but at some point, you know, you're winning this battle and you're impressing people enough, you can turn that into a ball rolling. And obviously, it's not like, I don't know, like, spoiler alert, the Americans win this one in the end eventually. But that Quebec fight is just it's a mind boggler, you know.
These are the guns of Fort Ticonderoga, which Knox has promised General Washington he shall have for his siege of Boston.
Yeah.
Where they may well turn the tide. Knox arrives on the 27th of January, 1776, with all 59 guns not far behind. A jubilant Washington promotes Knox to commander of the artillery.
Knock knocks. Nyeh.
Washington's first instinct is to use the guns to support a direct assault on Boston across the frozen Charles River. But his war council persuades him to adopt a more cautious approach, to fortify Dorchester Heights, from where the guns can threaten the British fleet at anchor. Without the fleet guaranteeing resupply, the British Army will have to evacuate.
Rough.
Tons of timber, stone and hay are discreetly gathered at Roxbury,
Yeah.
while the Americans open a nightly bombardment on Boston to mask their preparations. The British answer with twice the firepower. On the third night, Patriot forces used the cover of the bombardment to quietly haul 20 guns onto Dorchester Heights. By dawn the next day, they have entrenched the position and garrisoned it with 6,000 troops. The British are horrified. They open up with a massive cannonade.
And so this entrenchment tactic was great because, as you see, the Boston Harbor, you can come at it from the right here, on the right side of the map. You can come at it from the east, I suppose. Go in with ships. You can resupply Boston. You can take people out, all that kind of stuff. If you've lost that area and your ships are just going to get slaughtered as soon as they come out of port, you can't really do anything about it, and you sort of it's like blocking the retreat path in a way. So this is an interesting facet of naval warfare here that utilizes both land and sea. I really like things like this. This is the kind of stuff that it's the reason why America deserved this victory so much. Especially with the cover of night, the cover of bombfire. It's just beautiful. This kind of thing, it's a masterpiece, it's glorious, and it's beautiful.
But their fire does little damage. The British prepare an assault, but snow and hurricane-strength winds force General Howe to call it off.
It's sort of this divine... The reason why there's a lot of people, and I think that there are a lot of people who don't quite understand that America sees itself as divinely mandated, in a way. Like, Manifest Destiny is an aspect of divine mandate. Your mandate is for freedom, called upon by God, potentially, with this key little storm here that prevents them from doing anything about it. You know, you got Dorchester. They took it. They've got people up in large parts of the Boston area, completely surrounding the British, who are hunkered in Boston proper, and they got destroyed here. This is a big fight. Let's see how it ends.
With his men now close to starvation and decimated by sickness, Howe decides he must evacuate the city.
Yeah!
In exchange for an unopposed departure, the British agree not to destroy Boston. On the 20th of...
Look at that. That's so beautiful. We're not going to wreck your beautiful town. Just let us go. That's so good. That's such a W. Like, no one could ever ask for a better victory there. No one. Not a single person. It's just glorious.
March, the British blow up their supply base at Castle William.
Yep. Bang.
Then sail for Halifax to regroup and resupply.
Off to Nova Scotia.
After more than 10 months, the siege is over. The British have been defeated, and news of Washington's victory spreads across the colonies, sparking celebrations and jubilation. A Connecticut newspaper proclaims,
"The joy of our friends in Boston on seeing the victorious and gallant troops of their country enter the town almost on the heels of the barbarous oppressors was inexplicably great."
A British lieutenant remarks,
I hope the rebels will get heartily thrashed. I would be content to lose a leg and an arm to see them totally defeated and their whole country laid waste.
Cry harder. All right, so that'll be it for today. That's the glorious battle, winning Boston back after they really bumfungled the whole Canadian part. That's it's pretty good. This is actually not a super long episode, but we got two big battles. One heartbreaking, sad loss, which was not an advisable attack either. And then you have like maybe one of the biggest and most glorious victories from America within their own state, within their own country. No real outside help. America went in and they completely annihilated the giant foothold that the British had, kept the city of Boston, kept it from being destroyed. They took out that little island and ran away. The British are gone, and it is now all good and beautiful again. Definitely be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications. What would you like to see more of in the future? I'm getting ideas for what we do on our Friday videos. We're gonna start doing those up again real soon. Working on a lot more content on all 3 of my channels, hopefully. And I'll see you all again next time. Have a good one. Bye-bye.